Number 10. The Bomb Jesus Shipwreck. In 2008, diamond miners were working inside Namibia's restricted Sperrgebiet zone, a forbidden stretch of coastline known as the Skeleton Coast. They were draining a shallow lagoon when something strange appeared in the sand. Wooden beams, metal shapes, and even gold. Buried beneath the desert sand was the wreck of an old sailing ship. Inside were human bones, navigational tools, fine pottery, and thousands of gold coins scattered like someone had spilled a chest in a hurry. What archaeologists found shocked the maritime history. The ship was the Bom Jesus, a Portuguese trading vessel that vanished in 1533 while sailing from Lisbon to India. It had disappeared without a trace nearly 500 years earlier, likely swallowed by a violent storm along the African coast. Instead of sinking into deep water, the ship slammed into the shoreline. Waves broke it apart, sand buried it, and the desert took over. And that's what saved it. Inside the wreck was a staggering cargo. Thousands of gold coins from Portugal, Spain, and Venice. 40 tons of copper ingots stacked neatly in the hull. 105 elephant tusks, each marked for trade. 17 tons of German-made Fugger copper, some of the most valuable industrial material of the 16th century. The estimated value of the cargo alone was around $13 million. In 1533, that money was a fortune meant to fuel an empire. The copper was headed for India. The gold was part of international banking networks. The ivory came from Africa, destined for Europe and Asia, a floating map of early global trade. The condition of the wreck stunned researchers. Normally, wood rots fast in seawater. But here, the ship's timbers were in perfect condition. The reason was sitting right next to them. The copper. The massive copper cargo released chemicals that killed off marine organisms. The metal turned the wreck into its own preservation chamber. Even the human remains survived. Sailors who never made it to land lay where the ship broke apart, frozen in the middle of a disaster that ended in seconds. Eventually, the gold coins were seized. Number 9. Cerro Balena. 6 million years ago, the Atacama Desert wasn't a desert at all. In northern Chile, right beside what is now the Pan American Highway, an ancient coastline kept killing whales, over and over again. This place is called Cerro Balena, Whale Hill. It is one of the densest whale fossil sites ever found on Earth. More than 40 baleen whales were discovered here, along with seals, billfishes, aquatic sloths, and walrus-faced dolphins. Their skeletons were nearly complete, hardly scavenged, many were upside down, many faced the same direction. That pattern told scientists this wasn't random. It was 4 separate mass strandings. Over thousands of years, toxic algal blooms poisoned the ocean. The whales ingested the toxins through contaminated prey or inhaled them directly. Death would have been fast, disorienting, fatal. Storm waves then washed the dead and dying animals into an estuary and lifted them onto flat sand just above the tide line. Beyond reach of sharks, beyond scavengers, the Atacama preserved them. The bones date back roughly 6 to 9 million years. This graveyard was known for years. Whale bones could be seen sticking out of rock, but everything changed in 2010 when workers began the Pan American Highway construction. Scientists were given just 2 weeks to study the site before construction resumed. They scanned skeletons in place, removed what they could, then the road continued. Today, researchers believe hundreds more whales are still buried beneath the highway. Number 8. The Saqqara Animal Necropolis. 750 BCE. Beneath the desert plateau of Saqqara, something waits in the dark. Hidden near the Temple of Anubis, archaeologists uncovered a mass grave unlike anything else in Egypt. A catacomb packed with an estimated 8 million mummified animals. Most of them were dogs. The tunnels stretched more than 170 meters, branching like veins underground. Every corridor is filled with bundles of linen stacked floor to ceiling, puppies, full-grown animals. Many were only days old. These weren't pets, they were offerings. Ancient Egyptians believed dogs were sacred to Anubis, the jackal-headed god of death. Killing and mummifying them was considered a religious act. Once wrapped, the animals were thought to carry prayers directly into the afterlife, delivering messages on behalf of grieving families, so dogs were bred for it. Researchers found evidence of large-scale animal farming. puppies raised only to be sacrificed, a spiritual supply chain feeding constant demand from worshippers, millions of prayers, millions of bodies. Other animals were mixed in too: cats, hawks, baboons, bulls. But dogs dominated the tunnels, turning the catacombs into an industrial cemetery. The site dates from roughly 747 BCE to 30 BCE, when animal cults exploded in popularity. Pilgrims traveled here, bought a mummified animal, made a wish, and left it behind. An ancient version of religious tourism. Then things got stranger. Above the catacombs, a fossilized sea creature in the ceiling reminds us this desert was once ocean, long before gods or graves existed then. Number 7. The Dead Sea Scrolls, 1947. In the Judean desert, a boy threw a stone into a cave and heard pottery shatter. That sound led to one of the most important discoveries ever made in the desert. Hidden inside the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea were ancient manuscripts sealed in clay jars. They had been waiting there for nearly 2,000 years. Bedouin shepherds pulled out the first 7 scrolls, unsure what they were holding. Some were sold for pocket money, others hung from a tent pole like laundry. No one realized they were handling sacred history. Over the next decade, archaeologists searched the cliffs. They found fragments scattered across 12 caves, thousands of pieces, parchment and papyrus. Texts dated between 408 BC and 318 AD. About 40% were copies of Hebrew scripture. Another 30% were religious writings never included in the Bible. The rest described strict rules, rituals, and beliefs of a mysterious desert sect. Radiocarbon dating confirmed their age. Careful reconstruction revealed ancient Hebrew alphabets, laws, prayers, and prophecies. Some manuscripts were older than any biblical text ever known. The scrolls changed everything. They showed how scripture evolved, how beliefs fractured, and how communities lived in isolation, waiting for divine intervention. But the desert didn't give up its secrets cleanly. As prices rose, looters moved faster than scholars. Fake fragments surfaced after 2002, muddying the record. Still, most were real. Real voices, real ink, real hands pressing words into skin. They were hidden in caves as the world outside burned. Number 6. The Eye of the Sahara, 1965. In the Western Sahara, the desert revealed one of the strangest findings in the desert. From the ground, it looks like nothing: flat sand, broken rock. But from space, something impossible appears. A perfect bullseye nearly 50 kilometers wide, carved into one of the most chaotic landscapes on Earth. This is the Rishat structure, the Eye of the Sahara. Astronauts preparing for the Gemini 4 mission spotted it by accident. They were asked to photograph Earth's terrain. Instead, they found geometry, something so precise it became a navigation landmark in orbit. Even trained scientists hesitated because nature rarely draws circles this clean. At first, researchers thought it was an impact crater, a colossal strike from space. They searched for shocked quartz, melted rock, and high-pressure minerals. Almost none appeared. The evidence didn't fit the violence. The explanation turned out to be strange. Molten rock pushed up from deep underground, lifting the crust into a giant dome without ever breaking through. Over tens of millions of years, wind and erosion peeled it apart, exposing rings of ancient quartzite, rhyolite, and gabbro. Some layers are older than the Sahara itself. Geologists now date it to around 100 million years ago, when Pangaea was tearing itself apart. Pressure built, plates shifted, the desert kept the scar. Still, people won't let it go. Plato described Atlantis as concentric rings of land and water. From orbit, the resemblance is unsettling. No ruins, no walls, just form. Whatever shaped it didn't destroy the land. It rearranged it, forever watching. Number 5. The Lost Plane in the Sahara, June 28, 1942. Deep in the Sahara Desert, something from another war was still waiting. In 2012, workers for a Polish oil company on an expedition in the Sahara Desert came across a British Royal Air Force fighter plane. On its own, this would be peculiar enough, but even more shocking was the plane was found to have crashed there almost 70 years ago during World War II. The wreck sat alone in the sand, untouched, almost intact. Being remarkably well preserved, the plane was easily identified as a Kitty Hawk P-40. The fighter plane, with 6 machine guns mounted to the wings, was intended to strike fear into Axis forces, but instead struck only sand. The markings were still visible, the metal still sharp, the cockpit still sealed. The desert had preserved it like a museum display. Curiously, upon its discovery, something was missing from the crash site: the pilot. A parachute was found on the scene, apparently fashioned into a rudimentary shelter. This suggests that the pilot survived the crash, but facing starvation and dehydration, he seemingly wandered out into the desert, never to be seen again. RAF reports indicate that the pilot was Flight Sergeant Dennis Copping, who went missing on his way for repairs while defending Egypt from the German invasion of North Africa. He wasn't on a combat mission, he was just relocating an aircraft. Nobody was ever found, no bones, no equipment trail, just a plane frozen in time and a man erased by sand. Where he is now remains a mystery only the Sahara knows the answer to. Number 4. The Empty Tomb, 1995. In Egypt's Valley of Kings, the desert played a trick on archaeology. Egyptologists are used to crowded royal tombs. Gold, coffins, bodies stacked like history forgot them. But when Professor Kent Weeks entered a massive tomb carved into the valley walls, he found something wrong. More than 100 rooms, corridors branching endlessly, and almost nothing inside. No mummies, no coffins, just silence and dust. Inscriptions told a different story. The walls named the children of Rameses the Great, dozens of royal sons and daughters who should have been buried here. A tomb built like a city, meant to house a dynasty's future. Weeks first explored it in 1995, expecting a burial site. Instead, it looked stripped, looted, empty, so empty it felt intentional. For years, the mystery continued. The mummies hadn't been stolen, and they definitely hadn't walked out like a Hammer horror movie. Then it struck him, they were hidden. Behind a false wall, sealed by sand and time, lay a buried lower level. An entire underground world choked by desert collapse. Slow excavation revealed the dark truth. Bone fragments, linen, coffin pieces, the remains of Rameses' children relocated deep below ground for protection during ancient tomb robberies. This wasn't an empty tomb, it was a royal bunker, a daycare of the dead, where Egypt hid its heirs from history itself. The desert kept the secret for 3,000 years. Number 3. Nabta Playa Calendar Circle. 6,000 BCE. Deep in the Nubian desert, 500 miles south of Cairo, stone pillars stand where nothing should. At first glance, they look familiar, a ring of standing stones arranged with intent, a calendar circle, like Stonehenge. Except this one is older, possibly by 2,000 years. The site is called Nabta Playa. It was discovered in 1974, buried beneath sand in a basin that no longer holds water. Archaeologists found pottery fragments, fire-blackened hearths, and carefully placed stones rising from the desert floor. Shockingly, this wasn't always a wasteland. 6,000 years ago, seasonal monsoon rains turned this basin into a shallow lake. Grass grew, cattle grazed, nomadic groups returned here again and again. The stones are aligned with the rising sun at the summer solstice. That alone tells us this place mattered. It wasn't random, it was observed, measured, remembered. Some buried stones are hollow, suggesting graves. But no human bones were found, only cattle remains. Cattle weren't food here. They were sacred, symbols of wealth, power, and cosmic order. This may have been a ceremonial center, a place where early humans tracked the sky, marked time, and tied survival to the stars, long before pyramids, long before pharaohs. The people who built this left no writing, no names, only stones aligned to the sun. Number 2. Nazca Lines, 500 BC. In Peru's Nazca Desert, the ground itself was turned into a message. Between 500 BC and 500 AD, ancient people scraped away dark pebbles to expose pale soil beneath, carving lines so large they can't be understood from the ground. These marks stretch across 19 square miles. Some run straight for miles, others form spiders, monkeys, birds, flowers, and human shapes. They were first recorded in 1553, when Spanish chronicler Pedro Chiesa de Leon saw them and assumed they were simple trail markers. He had no idea he was standing inside one of the largest artworks ever made. Most figures measure between 0.2 and 0.7 miles long. The desert helped preserve them. Almost no rain, barely any wind. The lines stayed sharp for centuries. What makes them unsettling is intent. The Nazca people had no aerial view, no hills high enough to see the designs whole. Yet the proportions are precise. Archaeologists believe the lines were ritual pathways, possibly linked to water, astronomy, or gods. Some align with solstices, others point toward underground aquifers. No written explanation exists. The people vanished, the desert stayed, and the message was meant for us. Number 1. Atacama Alien Skeleton, 2003. In the Atacama Desert, someone opened a cloth bundle and found a skeleton that shouldn't exist. It was 6 inches tall. The bones were fully formed, fused like those of a 6 to 8-year-old child. The skull was long and angular. The rib cage held only 10 ribs instead of 12. The body looked finished, not fetal. For years, UFO researchers circled the case. Documentaries were made. The skeleton was treated like evidence. Some called it proof that something non-human had died in the driest desert on Earth. In 2018, scientists stepped in. A study led by Stanford geneticist Gary Nolan analyzed the DNA. They discovered something shocking. The skeleton was human, a female fetus, and her genes matched local indigenous populations. But that didn't end the story. Researchers found mutations linked to severe skeletal dysplasia, rapid bone aging, and growth disorders. Her bones matured far faster than her body ever should have. Dozens of genetic changes had never been documented before. She wasn't an alien, she was something rarer, a human child whose biology broke nearly every rule. For years, her remains were passed around like a curiosity. That's all for now. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more Stranger Things coming.